Hello everyone, how are you? Today we're going to be taking a look at the BioShock remaster that came out yesterday, but it actually came out a little bit later, so I wasn't able to cover it in time before I had other things come up. So I'm going to take a look at it today, and to be completely honest, I'm really not that impressed. I really thought I was going to be happier with it, and I'll show you why here. I think that this was a long time coming, and that it was definitely something that that needed to happen. But let's go into the options here and take a look. Now, the menu is basically the same, except it's got this newer video in the background. But if we go into gameplay options, we still have all of our subtitles and our difficulty and everything. You know, the normal BioShock stuff. Audio options, same thing here. Use reverb, master volume, sound effect, voiceover. You can still customize your controls. There's custom keys. Same menu as it was in the original. But here's what kills me, and this is what threw me off yesterday, because I did launch it yesterday to take a look, and this is what really threw me through a loop. Is there's actually less graphics options here than there were in the original BioShock. You still have your anisotropic filtering. You still have anti-aliasing. But you have this expanded FOV slider or toggle now. Excuse me. And I don't know what that means. It expands your FOV, your field of view, a little bit, but not by much. And for some reason, and it could be my Elgato here, but for some reason it won't let me go past 1920 by 1080. But when I turn my Elgato off, I can go up to 4K. So it must not be playing well with my Elgato. But that's besides the point. That's obviously my issue and not really an issue with the game. But I just find it strange that there's less options in this menu than there were in the original. You know, you had hardware lighting, which would obviously make the lighting... I'm sorry, not hardware lighting. Environmental lighting options, which would make the lighting worse or better depending on whether or not you had it on and off. You had the FOV option was there. You had the locked FOV and then the I think it was called locked FOV. But I was really expecting, you know, like lighting options and maybe a different form of anti-aliasing. What is this? On and off? On and off what? What kind of anti-aliasing is it? Is it MSAA? Is it SSAA? Is it MLAA? Is it FXAA? You know, there's all these different types of anti-aliasing, and I'm not really sure what it is. I'm pretty sure that it's some form of FXAA, because knowing Unreal Engine, it's probably FXAA, and it does not a very good job at smoothing edges. You can see on the logo up here, there's edges, and on the actual, well, I don't know if YouTube's encryption, or I'm saying not encryption, their algorithm that gonna probably destroy that, but right on the lighthouse there. So I found that very strange. I mean, obviously, this video in the background is not representative of what the game looks like at all. The lighting looks a little bit better, but that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna load a new game here, because I made it inside the lighthouse and got in the bathysphere and then quit. So let me load up a new one here. We'll go ahead and accept that. And well, yeah, whatever. We'll just play on the regular difficulty here. And loading times don't seem to be any better. They're about the same amount.
Son, you're special. You were born to do great things. You know what? They were right.
So realistically, that cutscene didn't look that much different. And I've been looking at comparison screenshots and everything, and the biggest overhaul I think I can see is that they turned the textures up just a bit. Like the source material wasn't very high resolution to begin with, So maybe they had 2K textures, and they implemented them at like 1K, and they basically just upscaled them a little bit. The other thing I've noticed is that there's horrendous vertical tearing now. I was playing the original BioShock for my playthrough at 200 plus frames per second, like no problem at all, no tearing, nothing. This is sitting at the same 200-300 frames per second, and I'm getting horrendous screen tearing, and it doesn't make any sense. So as you can see, swimming through here, it's a little bit more responsive. Like the unlocked frame rate, it doesn't feel sluggish or anything, which is nice. And supposedly that kind of helps with the physics of the game too. But looking at the lighthouse, there's really not much that has changed. And I mean, you can see it like around the lights there. And when we go inside, it's changed a little bit as far as the ambient lighting. But that's really the only thing I can see that's changed, besides maybe like upscaling the textures a little bit to like BioShock 2 levels. And I haven't even touched BioShock 2 because I can only imagine that it probably looks the same. Now, one thing here is I can't remember, and I'll probably have to go back and look at the old video of my playthrough here, but I think they implemented some sort of cloth physics, which, I mean, for the amount of cloth that's actually in the game, that's probably not necessary. Because I can't even think of a time where I went, wow, I really wish this piece of cloth was animated. And that would probably be the only one that you see, is that one. So we'll go into the bathysphere here in just a second, actually. You can see there's like a little bit more ambient fog. The lighting's a little bit better, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see this because of YouTube's compression, but I really can't see it now. But you can see that the light, there's like God rays kind of right in the middle, right by his head. And those are like broken, and they're not working real well. So let's go under the sea here. Little Mermaid pun here. And take a look, because this is where the game really shines. You know, the underwater portion of the game. You're really looking for like that creepy, middle of the century blues, because it's under the water. And you got to watch this whole video. Unfortunately, they made it. I think they remastered these too. Looking at it, these seem to be a little bit higher resolution than they were originally. So I'll let you go ahead and watch this.
Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? No, says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in the Vatican, it belongs to God. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. I rejected those answers. Instead, I chose something different. I chose the impossible. I chose rapture.
So you can see it looks a little bit better. There's more bubbles. Everything's a little bit brighter. A little bit more animated. But, I was really disappointed at the lack of maybe like an ambient occlusion and maybe like a form of parallax mapping or tessellation, something along those lines, to maybe give the rocks a little bit more of a bulge and pop the signs out and the sea life. And I figured they would redo some of the models, kind of bring it up to the era of the BioShock Infinite DLC, where everything looked really fresh and new. I figured maybe they would have ported it over to that engine instead of, because as far as I can tell, this is the same engine. And what they did is, it's the same version of the engine. And what they did is basically upped it to like DirectX 11 from DirectX 10 and kind of just did a lighting pass on it. And we're like, okay, well, that's that. So just, toss it out there. Because we know that they only did BioShock 1 and BioShock 2. They didn't do BioShock Infinite. But they did the BioShock 2 DLC and the challenge rooms too. which I don't see how that could be that big of a deal. But you know, I was really looking forward to maybe like a whole slew of graphics options. You know, like I said, ambient occlusion, parallax mapping, or tessellation, either one of the two. You know, the game runs fine, so it doesn't need a better, you know, like a DirectX 12 or Vulkan, but it would have been nice to see like Vulkan support, you know, something open source, something like that. And I was really looking forward to maybe something that would allow, you know, like maybe bloom control or something along those lines. You know, something that would really give you that customization edge that the game didn't have when it came out originally because it was built on an older engine. And I mean, go look at like the graphics options for BioShock Infinite, and I understand that that's a newer game, but come back and look at this, which is, you know, supposedly a re-release and, you know, a remaster, I guess you could call it, even though it's not really a remaster. But you'll see that it's just kind of the same. You know, they changed the health and Eve bars. They changed those. They made those higher resolution. But looking at some of the textures, it's that looks like a default texture to me. You know what I mean? It doesn't look stellar. It looks much of the same. Like, you know, maybe put a different water shader in. You can do a whole lot with tessellation and water with DirectX 11. But, you know, looking here, it's not really all that different. You know, they didn't change the Vita chambers. They didn't really change any of the effects. So ultimately, I mean, it's a free upgrade if you already own it. And I think that it's a good deal because right now it's on sale, so you can get all of the games for one price in a pack. So it's a pretty good deal if you pick it up. But yeah, it's definitely not what I was expecting, and I was really expecting more. So hopefully maybe they'll put more graphics options in and change it up in a patch or something. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.